Content warning. This video discusses personal experience of emotional distress, feelings of betrayal, and challenges related to working in a politically adjacent charged environment. It also touches on themes of religious abuse, manipulation, and the impact of harmful rhetoric on the LGBTQIA community, child abuse, including references to PTSD and the long-term effects and trauma. Additionally, I will address topics that may reflect my liberal and left-wing perspectives and explore the underlying politics related to figures and issues like Steven Anderson, the commodification of pumpkin spice, and my own struggles with politics. I may discuss things about reappropriation of recipes, spices, and so on, but know that I have reverence from where this comes from and the impact it has on culture. I will begin with the Steven Anderson issue, the commodification of pumpkin spice that is being widely discussed as well, and then my own struggles with politics and serving the community. If any of this triggers you at all just by listening to this warning, do not move forward with this video. Please step out of the video and come back at another time, because your emotional well-being and mental health are a priority over anything that I say here. Everything that I say here, strictly based on my opinion, perspectives, and understanding of what's going on. I do want to disclose that while the scripts were dictated by me, I did use ChatGPT to help me organize my thoughts, as sometimes my thoughts tend to be all over the place. I have gone over it with a fine-tooth comb, have edited, and have left some things intact. So please understand that it's not just my opinion and my thoughts into it. I have also referenced research studies, other content creators talking about these things, and in no way do I pretend that I'm an expert in any of this. Thank you so much. The situation surrounding Pastor Steven Anderson is one of the most unsettling things I've encountered on YouTube, particularly within this sector. I want to clarify that I don't have a religious background or any specific connection to this situation, and I won't delve into what the children involved are experiencing, especially since one of them is still a minor. However, there are elements of this situation that resonate deeply within my own life. Years ago, my best friend had heated exchanges with some pastors from Steven Anderson's church, back when his videos were still available online. I'm talking about years ago. From those interactions, it became clear that Steven Anderson is a dangerously complex individual. He often speaks about the death penalty in relation to the LGBTQIA community, well, particularly homosexuals, but he thinks that the LGBTQIA community is a homogenized group of gay people, which hits home for me as I have an adult child who is gay. My best friend also has gay siblings, but we don't need these close ties to feel mutual respect and love for the LGBTQIA community. The impact of such hate-filled rhetoric is personal, especially as it relates to our families. My friend, who is Catholic, has a better understanding of the church's beliefs than I do. He would often discuss the toxic nature of Anderson's views, and I began my own research into his teachings. It quickly became apparent that Anderson is emotionally unstable and poses a real threat to social well-being, or should I say societal well-being. His rhetoric follows fosters an environment where hate crimes against people like my son could be legitimized. Anderson uses his pulpit to incite what I would consider terrorism and hate against individuals like my own son. It's essential to recognize that my son was born this way. His identity is not a choice. He's a good man living authentically as himself with his partner. They both work hard, care for their families, and contribute positively to their community. The love they share is pure and nurturing, qualities that seem foreign to someone like Steven Anderson, who appears to view his relationship with his wife as a power dynamic rather than one of mutual respect and love. Reflecting on my own friend's experience with Anderson content, I understand that the emotional turmoil faced by the pastor's children on my own past, and it relates to my best friend as well. Though my own upbringing wasn't religious, it was fraught with dysfunction. My father, while not a religious man, was an abusive tyrant and treated me as if I were property. Though we would have some good times, that would be quickly overshadowed by his need to dominate others. The Anderson children's testimonies about their experiences under Anderson's authoritarian rule resonate with me as well. They describe a fear that feels familiar, even if I haven't experienced it in the same context. It's alarming to see Anderson dismiss his children and label those who speak out as being in line with evil. It took my breath away. It's reported that he's been involuntarily placed in mental health care, though I can't confirm that. In my opinion, he belongs in prison. His dangerous dogma can and does harm people. The potential consequences of legislation connected to initiatives like Project 2025, for instance, could be devastating for many families, especially those with gay children. It's frightening to think about a world where simply knowing someone who identifies as part of this community could also lead to severe repercussions. Now, Steven Anderson does not align with any political association at all and may not be at all interested in Project 2025, but I just wanted to draw some scary parallels. Anderson's view of family seems to revolve around control rather than love, strictly transactional to prop up his horrible ego. His sadistic cult-like tendencies are disturbing, and while I don't know what it's like to live with him, I can certainly deduce his impact from his rhetoric. There are people supporting the pastor's children, and it's heartening to see them finding strength in one another. The courage it takes to speak out against such a figure is profound and conflicting, especially when one of the dear children continues to express their love for their parents despite their circumstances. The impact of PTSD, religious abuse, and manipulation, these things cannot be understated. Understanding PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is a mental health condition that can develop after experiencing or witnessing a traumatic event. Symptoms may include flashbacks, nightmares, severe anxiety, and uncontrollable thoughts about the event or particular events. There are different types of PTSD. While PTSD is commonly associated with combat veterans and survivors of physical trauma, it can also arise from psychological trauma, including experiences of religious abuse and manipulation. Religious abuse occurs when individuals or groups use religious beliefs or practices to manipulate, control, or harm others. This can manifest in many ways, including emotional and psychological manipulation, coercive control, and the shaming, the horrible shaming that keeps people awake at night according to their experiences. Individuals who experience religious abuse may find themselves trapped in environments that exploit their faith for power, often leading to profound psychological effects. Now, I'm going to describe the intersection of PTSD and religious abuse. Trauma exposure. Victims of religious abuse often experience traumatic events that can lead to PTSD. This can include emotional abuse, threats of eternal damnation, or severe guilt for questioning or leaving the faith. Sometimes having an identity which does not align with the faith's expectations cause a lot of turmoil as well. The manipulation often creates an environment where fear and shame dominate, exacerbating trauma responses. Isolation. Religious abuse often involves isolating individuals from outside influences, including family and friends. This isolation can intensify feelings of helplessness, despair, contributing to PTSD symptoms. Victims may struggle with trust and develop an aversion to community or social connections, further entrenching their sense of isolation. Cognitive dissonance. Many individuals raised in abusive religious environments experience cognitive dissonance when their experience contradict the teachings they've internalized. This inner conflict can lead to severe anxiety, depression, feelings of unworthiness, and compounding effects of PTSD. That's terrible. Identity crisis. I'm going to circle back here. The manipulation inherent in religious abuse often disrupts a person's sense of self. Victims may grapple with questions about their identity, beliefs, values, leading to a crisis that can exacerbate these symptoms. Reconstructing one's identity outside of the abusive framework can be a daunting and painful process. It's hard because then people start questioning their faith. And that is such a betrayal of trust. I can only imagine how that feels. So, here are some of the long-term effects. Mental health challenges. The combination of PTSD and religious abuse can lead to long-term mental health issues, including chronic anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. The stigma surrounding mental health, particularly in religious contexts, can prevent the individual from seeking help. Difficulty in relationships. Survivors may struggle to form healthy relationships due to trust issues stemming from their experiences. The fear of manipulation or betrayal can hinder intimacy and connection, leading to social withdrawal for some. Spiritual struggles. My heart also breaks here. While I personally am not connected to any religion at this time, I do not even believe in God. I can only imagine that internal connection with a higher power can be compromised by such abuse. Many victims find themselves wrestling with their faith and spirituality. Some may reject religion entirely, while others may seek out healthier spiritual practices. The journey to reclaim one's spirituality can be fraught with confusion and pain, making recovery challenging. I would not say that this is an argument for people to abandon religion altogether, but some people do. And some people hold on to what is important. And the thing is that I am not the type of person to say religion should be abolished completely, because people do have questions. People do want to connect with a higher power. I can't interfere in that no more than they should interfere with my choice to abstain from it. Empowerment and healing. Well, despite the profound impacts of PTSD and religious abuse, many individuals find pathways to healing support from mental health professionals. Peer groups, compassionate communities can foster resilience and recovery. Some may choose to explore new spiritual frameworks that align with their values without the constraints and manipulation. You have to take the madman out of the equation. Okay? You got to find it within yourself. That relationship that you want that is fulfilling and supportive. Now, I want to go back on the focus of Anderson and his own feelings because I've seen people make excuses for him. The focus often seems to be on Anderson and his feelings rather than the impact of his actions on those around him. It's disheartening how many still prioritize his perspective over the suffering of others. If those who support him truly open their hearts, one would hope they could embrace compassion rather than the strict adherence to an authoritarian figure's beliefs. I identify as an atheist, but I believe in the importance of human connection and community. My sense of belonging sometimes feels tenuous, yet I understand that our interconnectedness is vital. I respect the choice of people to adapt to religion, to believe in that, to still have questions, or to abstain it altogether. In stark contrast, people like Anderson himself appears intent on separating people from their humanity rather than fostering a community that celebrates love and understanding. His self-serving beliefs overshadow the actual human beings in his life. This is what people like him do. If Anderson has indeed been involuntarily institutionalized, he will likely struggle to receive effective treatment given his defiant nature and defiance of authority altogether, unless he is obeyed. While I hope he gets the help that he needs, I maintain that his actions are criminal. Ultimately, I can't engage in discussions about religious text or beliefs, as they hold no significance for me. I respect that others may find comfort and connection through faith, but those conversations aren't ones I can partake in authentically. Instead, I'm more interested in discussing relationships, especially when they're complicated by factors like dysfunctional religious control, because there are many types of dysfunctional control. So I'm not aiming at religion particularly, just in the context of this conversation. Thank you so much for letting me share my thoughts on this troubling issue. It is important to highlight the real impact of hateful rhetoric and the necessity for compassion in our communities. I have not stated very clear examples of how this has affected people abroad and for thousands of years. A lot of us know those stories. We don't have all those experiences because they have been obliterated through time, through lack of technology, through a lot of things. And it's important that people's experiences are heard. The commodification of pumpkin spice, a flavorful reflection. As a devoted fan of the pumpkin spice latte PSL, I find it fascinating how this seasonal drink has morphed into a cultural phenomena, a symbol of autumn that elicits both joy and sometimes frustration. Growing up in a multi-ethnic environment, I've always craved diverse and imaginative flavors, yet mainstream offerings often feel repetitive, revolving around basic profiles like chocolate and caramel. It's the unique flavors that truly excite me, and there are not many that excite me, and for years the PSL has represented that thrill as autumn rolls in. My love affair with the pumpkin spice latte or the pumpkin spice flavor in general began back in 2004 with Dunkin' Donuts. Each fall, I eagerly anticipated its arrival, not just for the taste, but for what it represented, the start of a new season filled with nostalgia and warmth. Over the years, I've experimented with pumpkin spice in various culinary creations, from trifles to layered cakes to charlotte cakes and so on. However, when it comes to coffee, my preference remains clear. I want my pumpkin spice there and nowhere else, save for perhaps a classic pumpkin pie. My disdain for overly sweetened coffees and syrup heavy concoctions has grown alongside my appreciation for more authentic flavors. I often find myself frustrated by the excess commodification of coffee. Why should I pay exorbitant prices for a drink that's more sugar than coffee? I prefer to savor the genuine taste of a well brewed cup rather than be overwhelmed by artificial additives. While I've enjoyed the pumpkin spice offerings from various cafes, I've also started making my own syrups at home. Recently, I indulged in two pumpkin spice lattes from Dunkin' and a pumpkin spice coffee at a local cafe. I believe it was pumpkin spice Vietnamese coffee, where the pumpkin spice was actually crafted from natural ingredients. This experience reminded me of the charm of artisanal coffee making and how the right ingredients can elevate a simple drink, although sometimes just the simple drink itself can be appreciated, especially with all the hard work and history behind it. The pumpkin spice craze has been analyzed from various angles, from various content creators and researchers, often pointing to its role as a marketing tool that taps into the autumn nostalgia. Now, some scholars argue it symbolizes deeper issues such as the historical commodification of spices and their ties to colonialism. This perspective invites a moment of reflection, especially as I enjoy my seasonal treat. Understanding these origins adds complexity to the simple pleasure of sipping a PSL. The impact of the spice trade on indigenous peoples. The spice trade, which flourished from the Middle Ages through the early modern period, had profound effects on indigenous people worldwide, particularly in regions where spices were cultivated. The demand for spices like pepper, cloves, nutmeg, and cinnamon drove European exploration and colonization, leading to significant social, economic, and cultural consequences. Economic exploitation. The spice trade fueled European colonial expansion with, with nations like Portugal, Spain, the Netherlands, and England, establishing colonies in spice producing areas. These colonial powers exploited indigenous lands and labor for spice cultivation, often enforcing harsh labor practices and abuse, and even murder. This shift disrupted the traditional economies, forcing indigenous communities into dependency on colonial powers and shifted into pockets of what was their own land, power, and respect for the earth. Indigenous peoples face the imposition of foreign governance structures, eroding their traditional social systems and political autonomy, but not entirely. The colonial authorities often dismiss indigenous customs and practices as inferior savagery, leading to the cultural assimilation and loss of identity. The spice trade fueled violence and conflict as indigenous populations resisted colonial encroachment, often resulting in violent confrontations and, of course, significant loss of life. Additionally, the demand for labor to cultivate spices led to enslavement of many indigenous peoples who were subject to brutal conditions on plantations. The arrival of Europeans brought diseases to which indigenous populations had no immunity, decimating communities and exacerbating the impacts of colonization. Furthermore, the focus on cash crop production altered the traditional diets, diminishing access to diverse and nutritious foods. Today, the legacy of the spice trade continues to affect many indigenous communities, many of whom still struggle with the consequences of colonialism, including economic disparities and land right issues. Now, recognizing this history is crucial for understanding contemporary cultural heritage, land rights, and economic justice. While I cherish the flavor and comfort of that pumpkin spice brings, I also recognize that my relationship with the food and drink extends beyond mere consumption. I aim to appreciate the origins and labor that go into creating my craft drinks and meals, fostering a deeper connection with what I eat and drink. It's essential to honor the diverse cultures that have contributed significantly to the flavors we enjoy today, treating food as an experience rather than a commodity. But it's also necessary to subsist. Interestingly enough, I tried making bobotie again, which is a traditional Cape Malay South African dish I hadn't made in over 20 years. Revisiting its roots helped me appreciate the layers of flavor, spice, and history behind it, highlighting the importance of honoring culinary traditions. Food can be a bridge to understanding and valuing the experiences of others. Though my palate has evolved and I've become more discerning about what I consume, I still find joy in the seasonal flavors. Autumn is my favorite time of the year, and the small pleasures it brings help me navigate the complexities of my past. While I'm not here to dictate how others should enjoy their pumpkin spice latte or any other seasonal treat, I just encourage a mindful approach to consumption or to overconsumption. It's essential to celebrate the connections we create over food and drink, recognizing that these experiences contribute to our sense of community. As I continue to experiment with flavors in my own kitchen, I find solace in crafting wholesome meals that nourish my body and soul and appreciate the land from which it grows and the people who have worked hard to provide that for me. After all, true enjoyment comes from understanding and appreciate the rich tapestry of flavors that life offers while honoring the labor and traditions behind them. I'm not sure where to start with everything I'm feeling at this time. As I've said, I have my good days and my bad days, and lately my emotions have been all over the place. I feel a sense of betrayal amid all the change and uncertainty. It's not just one thing, it's a culmination of everything that I've experienced. I once believed I could make a difference in my work, but I'm now questioning that belief. Working in a public space without transparency or support is incredibly challenging. I'm sensitive to changes in behavior, and I can sense when people aren't being honest with me. There's an element of favoritism at play, but I also remember the initial support I received, which has now shifted. Politics and regulations have sidelined my plans and affected the community I care about. At one point, I was interested in politics, but the emotional toll of it is something that I don't think I can endure. It's disheartening to be in a place where others undermine your ideas while failing to offer genuine support. Volunteering often feels thankless, and while I don't expect accolades, the emotional disappointment I feel in the committee I love is overwhelming. I find myself screaming for attention, trying to advocate for myself and my work, but I'm emotionally exhausted to the point of wanting to step away. I've tried to leave responsibly, but that wasn't accepted, at least kindly, so I decided to stay, hoping for change. I can't continue feeling stuck in limbo. I'm supposed to promote a major project but I'm unsure if I'll ever be involved, even though that a lot of myself was poured into it. But of course, I wasn't the only hand in it. I might redirect my research to my personal show on a free speech channel where I think people might be more willing to engage with me. I feel like I've been carrying too much of the outreach and coordination work initially, and it caused a lot of stress. And despite my ideas' intelligence, I lack the training to implement them. I don't want to be somewhere where I'm not appreciated or at least getting the structure and training I need. I know that's on the horizon, but when, I don't know. I'm ready to channel my efforts into something else that raises awareness. There's significant power and protocol within this committee, and it's important to follow all the rules and regulations and policies strictly. And I dread attending meetings now. I feel sidelined while others receive recognition. This was supposed to be a team effort where everyone is celebrated, but I often feel overlooked, and that could be a problem with me than with anyone else. I'm at a crossroads in grappling with these feelings. While I may not be feeling very emotional right now, I do feel numb and lacking ambition, at least for this. The potential is there, but I refuse to be relegated to the background due to my age or lack of a strong educational background. I'm open to learning, but I need clear structure and expectations to thrive. Ultimately, I want what's best for the community while also taking care of myself. I'm confused about my feelings and the stress that has taken a toll on my health. I've dealt with the flu, COVID, hives as of recently, among the stress of what my body's going through. That's no reason for me to bow out of a situation. Now I just want to create videos and express myself, but I'm struggling to find clarity, and even that doesn't interest me. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just being immature about this process, but I feel like something isn't right, and that I don't see the point in ever being in a place where I can't do any meaningful work. If I'm not doing something, what's the point of me being there? What's the point of me being a representative if I'm not doing meaningful work? This is not a fluff position. It's not a position where I get to say I do this. I need to prove that I do these things. That comes with action. It comes with completed projects. It comes with testing to see if it works. If it doesn't work, how can I make it better? I need to have these experiences in what I do. And I just don't have that at this point. Maybe I'm being impatient, but I love this work so much. I love it so much. And it's so important to me. And I'm very knowledgeable in it. While I do not hold a higher degree, my own experiences, my self awareness, understanding the experiences of others, partaking in their experiences through education, through talking to people and getting to know people. That's the work that I love doing because it means I connect with others. And I don't always need a reason to reach out to people. I can always talk to people, get to know people, because that's what we do. And I'll continue to do that and keep on going with this. But, there are other ways that I can express my talents, my gifts, my intellect, in places where I'm more appreciated. And I'm not saying that this committee isn't special, because I really honestly have a community love for the people I work with, and I believe in it to an extent. I believe in that this is doing great work, and we are in a period of transition. But I'm frustrated because I feel like I still have to promote work that I'm unable to do because we haven't met the requirements, and we have to meet certain requirements. Otherwise, our committee dissolves. It doesn't do anything. And I am given some more responsibilities, which is good because I need to be doing things, but I do not want to be sidelined out of the things that I do to put another face in front of it. That's not my job. Maybe because of, I have had I've been rejected for the way that I look, for the way that I am, all those things. They really don't have any place in of my reality now, because I've accomplished a lot of things that I worked hard for. But I'm not going to be displaced or pushed in the back because of my age, or I do not reflect the youth of the community, because then that would be entirely ageist and would entirely defeat what our purpose is. So I don't know, maybe I'm just being a little too self-indulgent, but this is my experience. I'm being honest with it. I do grapple with a lot of things. I've talked about that here. And I just wanted to express that. This is not a means of any way to denigrate anyone, because I know that I can be too emotionally reliant on something to change the way that I feel about myself. But that's the work that I need to do for myself, in my own exploration, in my own development of my self-awareness. It's no one else's responsibility but my own. Thank you so much for listening to me. I appreciate it.